Following than me. Hey. All right, we're live. Hey guys, can you let me know in the chat if you can see and hear us before I do my thing? Intro? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay, I'm gonna assume that you can, and there's 0 people watching. So what's up? I'm Nicole Nerd Girl 007, no vowels. This is Building Bridges. Tonight, my guest is Jonny Litecoin. We're gonna introduce Jonny and kind of get into the history about some of what happened in some kind of Twitter brawl shortly. But first, I do have to tell you guys a couple of things. There's going to be another episode of Building Bridges at a special time this week on Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific with Kurt Walkert Jr., who bills himself as a chief Bitcoin historian. He's a huge supporter of BSB, and while most people who are watching this stream will probably be really against that, my research in crypto tribalism, BSB plays a really important role because it really plays the beginning. It plays it's the beginning of my field work studying that, although I was studying it for a couple of years before. Also, while I was researching anti-BSV tribalism, anti-Craig Wright, that's actually when I first discovered Richard Hart. And the first time that I approached him about, hey, I think that this is about to happen, not, and you guys, some of you know the story, not that anything ever came of that initial conversation, but I probably wouldn't have been as reticent to come and hang out with the Hexicans when RG reached out to me a year ago if I hadn't had that experience first. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. I would love for you all to join us. Coincidentally, I was looking for a notebook last minute, and the one that I found was this CoinGeek notebook from when I went to a CoinGeek conference in Toronto, and I was like, oh, that's just fitting. Nice. So yeah, so also Saturday at 7 p.m. Central, Blaze and I will be doing a special episode of Hex Therapy with Maddie Allen. So come and hang out then too. All right, Jonny, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, before we get into kind of the history about what happened, I just want you to like introduce yourself a little bit. Like you and I just met on Twitter a few days ago or a couple of weeks ago when Crypto King suggested that you come and be a guest on the show.
Yeah, so I'm Jonny Litecoin. I'm obviously involved with Litecoin, hence the name Jonny Litecoin. But more importantly, I always worked in the payment space. So I worked like the credit card processing world and like doing like point of sale systems, which are like cash registers, like, you know, computerized cash registers and stuff for businesses. And then that's kind of what led me to Litecoin, to cryptos, to seek out kind of a better form of payment. And for the last few years, I've been just kind of helping people on Twitter, tweeting about different Litecoin stuff, and it's kind of became a part of the Litecoin community and the Litecoin fam, as they call it.
Cool. Yeah. I have really limited information. Like in, like I've done a lot of field work and research on different crypto tribes and groups and families, and my experience with Litecoin is super, super limited. I've reached out on multiple occasions to Charlie to talk to me, and I've never gotten a response. And like, and my friend John Kim, of course, is like a huge Litecoin advocate. I should probably have him on the show sometime too, but I really don't know very much about the Litecoin, the culture of Litecoin.
So Litecoin really tries to be like the people's crypto. It's kind of for like the average Joe, should you say. So the Litecoin community, I think, is like a really like open community, very helpful of newcomers. Very generally, I think, tries not to bash other cryptos too much. They try to be more open than most crypto communities. Not that there's not some people. Obviously, in every community, there's people that are gonna bash other stuff. But that's kind of like, again, Litecoin was kind of always marketed as the silver to Bitcoin being that digital gold. So I think if you think of silver, it was kind of always intended more for use, to actually use silver as like a everyday money. So that's kind of what the Litecoin holders see Litecoin as. It's a crypto that you can actually use, and it's a good store of value.
Yeah, so that much I do know. In fact, that's why I really like Litecoin is one of the original forks or projects off of Bitcoin. It's it existed separately from Bitcoin for longer than Ethereum has, which is actually why I think that it's important for my research on the development and evolution of crypto tribalism. But I haven't really been able to get anyone to talk to me about how things were in the beginning. Like at when Litecoin became its own thing. Were you around then?
No, I was working in the payments world then, but I wasn't involved in the crypto world then. But I think in the beginning, Litecoin was probably there wasn't as many altcoins back then.
Right.
It was better received back then. It wasn't as seen as such a threat. And I think the last few years, as it's grown in market cap, the liquidity's grown. It's seen as more of a threat, so it maybe gets bashed more by people. And I think a lot of people a lot of people go for like newer cryptos and stuff. So Litecoin's kind of like, oh, Litecoin, it kind of seems boring to people. Like, oh, it works. It's always been there. Ha ha ha. But I guess that's kind of the value prop of Litecoin. It always works. It's kind of like your old trusty car that it never breaks down. It always works. What we like to say in Litecoin, there's the Litecoin network has never failed. It's never ever failed. So there's never been a hiccup in it. So that's a really like cool thing to say and to be able to beat our chest with. In almost 10 years in existence, it's had no downtime. I think
So that's really similar to Hex, actually, except for Litecoin is still really like being developed and growing. Where Hex is a complete smart contract. It has zero downtime, and yeah, there are developers who continue to work on it, but it doesn't need further. It's done. It's complete, and I think that makes it kind of a similar.
cool.
Yeah, kind of
Okay, nice.
not similar product, because Hex isn't meant for payments. It's meant for saving and staking. Like, it's time deposit.
Okay.
So yeah, actually, so before we were live, you and I only got to talk for like 2 or 3 minutes, right? And you were saying that actually when I posted the history of that there had been problems between you and the Hex community, you were like, "What? I don't know anything about that. Like, where did that come from?"
Yeah, I didn't remember. The only really community that I ever had a problem with was Bitcoin maximalists.
Mm-hmm.
Because they attack every crypto. I'm sure they attack you guys as well, but they attack Litecoin a lot because it's a real threat to them, I guess. So those are the only people I've ever really attacked on my end, I guess. Or I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was other people in the Litecoin community, and I wasn't.
So I think that what happened, if I'm correct, I kind of have heard this story a few different ways, and of course, I've only heard it from the perspective of mostly Hexicans, because that's who I've been talking to about this. Sorry, so it's safe to say we all hate Bitcoin maxi pads. I don't hate Bitcoin maxis. I don't hate anyone. Bitcoin maximalism is a huge problem, and I've been saying that for years, really, since I started this research. It's a problem for adoption of cryptocurrency, in my opinion. But anyway, sorry. I'm going to stop paying attention to the comments for a minute. Yeah, so remind me where I was. We were talking before the show.
You were talking about the problem, how you understood it. What was the problem that Hex had with?
Oh, right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I think what happened is that the founder of Litecoin, Charlie Lee, tweeted something negative about Richard, or Richard responded to something, and then I think you responded to Richard like, why would Charlie ever even something to like scammers like you? And that kind of started a brawl, because the Hexicans have been under constant attack for, since its inception, definitely for the last year. And yeah, do you
I
remember?
don't think it was me, because I don't, like I said, I don't call anybody a scammer in the business. I'm familiar with the guy Richard, that I just know that he created Hex, so I don't have an opinion of him one way or the other. Like I said, I like to let the free market decide. It probably was another John that was involved with.
You know what? That's what they're saying right now, and that's the same thing. So they're like, that was John Kim,
okay,
and
gotcha.
then earlier they were like, oh, I thought Johnny Litecoin was John Kim, was Asian, and I'm like, no, that's John Kim. But yeah, so okay, maybe you guys, we need to talk to John Kim. We follow each other. I'll reach out to him. I need to talk to him anyway. So okay, so that makes sense for why you aren't familiar with this whole thing that's going on.
Yeah, I kind of, like I said, I try to stay out of drama. My thing is, I wish every crypto project luck in their what they're trying to build and to get adoption. And if they do build something cool and they get it integrated into like point of sale equipment, if it has to do with payments, and I could be of a big help for them, and I'll support the product if I think it's cool, especially if it supports Litecoin. A lot of crypto projects are building networks, and the networks are integrating Litecoin into it, or their wallets integrating Litecoin into it, and then I'm always happy to help out. I'm not a tech guy by any means, even though I worked in the payments business. I know what like is needed like on the street, like, but I'm not a developer on blockchain networks, if that makes sense. So I don't really know enough to attack another crypto network to say, hey, is it a scam or not? The only thing I will say is that I view Bitcoin and Litecoin as commodity money, and I view everything else as kind of crypto tech. And that's not that I'm knocking it. It's just that with the proof of work mining and with the energy that's used and how that structure is created, I view those cryptos as actual commodities. I view it as a commodity money like gold and silver. And I look at everything else more as blockchain tech. And like I tell everybody, there's a lot of money to be made speculating on blockchain tech, and I think a lot of projects will build cool things, but it's kind of out of my area of expertise to say, hey, this is going to be a winner, that's going to be a winner. I know what's needed from the payments end, from like the customers on the street, what they're saying that they need and want.
Got you. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And I don't think that anybody here is really like opposed to Litecoin or opposed to any payments network. I think the thing that Hexicans really dislike is that when payments networks have products that are faulty or that don't really work well for people to actually use. So Hexicans typically like have a relationship with have a strong relationship with the Dash community.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know very much about that as a payment system?
Yeah, Dash isn't bad. The key for payments in like when I say the real world, if you go out and talk to like businesses on like Main Street, if you go talk to like like a Mercedes dealership or a large business, or they want to know how liquid is the crypto. Where could they sell it at? They get a large order. Can they get rid of a lot of it? So that's really important. Dash is pretty liquid, I'd say, and Dash has been around for a while, so Dash is pretty decent as far as a payment goes. Better than most, I'd say. That would be how I would rate Dash as far as my end as like a payments guy.
Okay, well, so someone is asking, let's find out more about the Litecoin community. And I actually agree with that. So, one question that I have, because it looks like the fight that broke out between John Kim and the Hex community was about him defending Charlie. And so I'm curious about within the community, like what level of, I don't know, hero worship would you say that there is for Litecoin's creator?
Well, John Kim was like Charlie's bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of why I guess he would like have came to his defense.
Yeah, someone said that in the comments. Yeah.
So I guess a lot of people I wouldn't say it's like a hero thing. A lot of people were mad at Charlie, like when he sold the coins in 2017. A lot
Mm-hmm.
weren't though, and a lot of people said, "Wow, this was a selfless act that he did." It was kind of like, "Hey, some people loved it, some people hated it." I think people see him as like a very wise guy. He has very good wisdom, insight on the business. I think they feel like he's a very honest guy as far as his intentions and everything. So I think people just think he's a overall good guy, and that's kind of why they like the affinity that people have towards him.
Yeah, I got it. And so, would it make sense that if Charlie said that Hex was a scam or a pyramid scheme, that a lot of Litecoiners would believe that, kind of like, or just take that, say, okay, Charlie says that this is the case, that must just be true, and not look into it further?
Yeah, and that's the case with a lot of influencers, though. If they say, and that's just the case
Sure.
with life in general. People don't look into things enough on their own, and if again, you shouldn't say, "Oh, because Charlie said something and he's smart, it must be true." You got to look in. He might be looking at it from one angle. Maybe the angle he's looking at it from, maybe he has a valid bone to pick, right? But maybe there's an angle that he's not thinking of that maybe Hex solves a big problem. I don't know. Again, I don't know about it. So I'm just talking about it like an outsider, looking in or whatever. But I guess that's kind of life in general. People don't look into things enough. And I guess that's just in general why we're in the mess we're in right now in the world of I don't want to say it on your channel, but the thing why people are wearing the masks.
Right. Mm-hmm.
People don't people just are kind of led and don't so I don't think I think Charlie does a lot of stuff half joking, and I think probably doesn't want people to take everything he's saying, everything he's saying word for word. A lot of stuff he's probably saying joking, but I guess that's life. People sometimes, if they like something and somebody's influential in it, they might take it at a. But again, I
So
didn't
I
even.
don't think that, just like, I'm not knocking Litecoin fam or Charlie in any way. I think that's definitely true within the Hex community, that people, kind of whatever Richard says goes.
Right.
And I think that that's a problem. It's a problem for me. I don't
But
like
the
to.
thing is, I didn't even know about it. So again, but I'm, not that I pay so much attention to stuff, but again, I didn't know about it. So I don't think it's that. And I haven't really heard anybody specific in the line. I've heard a lot of people knock Hex that didn't like it. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was definitely like a thing that people knocked a lot. But, I didn't, it wasn't specific from what I remember from like the Litecoin community that they really hated it. I thought some people liked Hex that I knew that were Litecoin holders.
Yeah, it seems like that from the chat. It seems like there are a lot of Hexicans are still or were at some point Litecoin holders.
Like one guy, like I know Crypto King was a Litecoin, he was a Litecoin holder. I know he likes Litecoin, but what's the other guy's name? Silvertooth. Silvertooth was a big Litecoin holder. I think he still is probably a Litecoin fan or whatever, and he's big into Hex. So it's
yeah, in fact, someone who was used to be called Litecoin Moses, who's now called dollar cost average.
Oh, there was two Litecoin Moses. There's
yeah.
One. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, the other one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's now called dollar cost average. He's like an OG Hexican.
Nice. Well, look, you guys, you guys survived all the knock-in and all the back and forth, and you guys are still here. You guys are still trucking along. So that's power to you guys. And on my, like I said, on my end, I hope you guys do build something good and that it's adopted. I'm all about look.
So it's not build, it's built, it's done. The difference between Hex and a lot of cryptocurrencies is that Hex is a finished product.
I don't mean build as far as your blockchain. I mean build as far as the adoption goes.
Mm-hmm.
And your product or network adopted. And what I always say is that in crypto in general, we shouldn't look at any blockchain network as the enemy. The banking system is the enemy. That's why I'm wearing the shirt, punish the banks, right?
Yeah.
That's the enemy. Like other crypto networks are not the enemy. That's why I think more crypto people need to like remember.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that too often we forget that and start fighting with each other. And when we're fighting with each other, there's no possible way that we're going to actually make headway, like fighting the traditional financial institution. That's too divided, like divided we fall, right? So someone said, Hexicans don't follow Richard word for word. That's a mischaracterization. We just like to follow integrity. Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm not gonna.
The other thing is too, the word community, like community. You can't paint a community with a broad stroke.
That's true.
Everybody in the community is the same because it's like there's so many people that think different in the community. If you watch one Litecoin channel or people that are Litecoin fans, you'll be like, oh, you'll get one view. Then if you watch another channel, you'll get another view. And you're like, both these people are like Litecoin supporters and going for adoption. And it's like, yeah, so I guess that's, I think a lot of times the loudest people get the most noticed.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And I agree with that. There are a lot of free thinking crypto people who are multi-coiners, who are Hexicans, I'm sure, who are part of the Litecoin fam. So since you don't know about it, I'm just going to like briefly tell you. I told you before that I don't personally like advise people to buy cryptocurrencies or try to convince people to buy anything, including Hex. I can just tell you, like, I think it's cool because time deposits are banking's second largest product. And like you just said, if cryptocurrency is going to replace banking, we have to replace all of banking's product. And that's from Taylor. So thanks, Taylor. He taught me that a few months ago on Twitter.
Nice.
And time deposits are the second largest product. So what I think is really cool is like I could lock up, some Hex for a certain time period for up to 5,555 days, which is 15.2 years, which I did to save for my daughter. And I'm at this point where like when I locked that up for her, I didn't realize it, but the like more time goes by, the more that I'm like, my daughter is never going to have to work a wage slave job that she doesn't love.
So is a time deposit kind of like staking, but with like a time element attached to it, I guess.
Exactly. So exactly, it's like that. You choose how long you want to lock up your hex for, and then depending on how long that is and how much you put in, you collect interest. So everybody gets T shares when they lock up hex for a certain period of time, and then the number of T shares or total shares that people have determines how punishments are distributed. So, and punishments would be for like ending your stake early.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're like with the banking world, if you were to take out do a certificate of deposit and then you ended your CD early, the bank would get all of the interest, everything that would go to the bank. With Hex, it goes half to the stakers and half of it goes to the origin address, which is, we don't know. Maybe controlled by Richard, maybe controlled by an AI or conglomerate or something.
So
But yeah, so it
let
is.
me
It's
ask,
staking with time. It monetizes time.
what is Hex like? What is it trying to be used for as far as like the front end? So that's what you're talking about is like the back end, which is cool, right? The back end is the people locking it up to get paid. But what about on the front end? What's the front end use case? Is it
So its only use case is staking. But actually, right now, Richard forked Ethereum and is building Pulse Chain, which is going to be, like Ethereum, but the idea is that it will, scale and not be expensive.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I hear you. We do need independent options and front end cases, and that's something that a financial advisor friend of mine told me when I first kind of got interested in Hex. I took it to a financial planner, and he was like, "It needs an actual use, like something other than staking."
Right. Because that's staking and we can argue different crypto people will argue, people like proof of work will argue staking's a scam or this is a scam or that's a scam. I look at it different. I say, hey, I'm big into proof of work as the commodity money, but everything else, I'll look at it and say, well, let's see if they can scale it. Let's see if they can get the adoption. Let's see what they could do with it. I'm not going to just say everything else is an outright scam. So, but I guess the front end use case, I guess for any crypto is important, but I guess a lot of the front end use case, we might not even know what it is yet because what it might be used for in the future might not even be something that we're thinking of now. It might not even be something that's been invented or out. So I guess Litecoin, why I kind of liked Litecoin. People always say to me, Jonny, why'd you like Litecoin? Why do you like Litecoin so much? Because I kind of saw the front end use case as being like that world money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, the world money front end use case. I kind of like that. And then it was so closely tied to Bitcoin. I like the Bitcoin story.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of was like, hovered so close to, I guess, Bitcoin and Litecoin. A lot of other stuff I shied away from because I was like, I got that front end use case, but the other stuff I was like, I don't know, I'm unsure. I don't know if it's so that's
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, so I think, Hex wasn't really designed to have a front end use case. It was kind of designed so that your value would increase and then you could go into whatever else it was with more purchasing power than you had when you started. That said, you theoretically can transact in Hex. I have been paid in Hex. It's just that because right now it's on Ethereum, it's not exactly cheap.
right. So it's so I guess as Ethereum scales, Hex will be more easy to transact with because it'll be if it's running on the Ethereum network.
Theoretically, or it's possible also that people can choose whatever they want to use as a front end payment and they just transfer from Hex into that.
Gotcha,
Like
gotcha.
Hex's primary use case is number go up. And I think Richard's main, not main, but one of Richard's kind of famous lines is that number go up is the only thing that matters in crypto. And, to some degree, he's right. Like, who cares if it doesn't, if the value doesn't increase, then like nobody is going to adopt, nobody is going to want to hold on to it.
I guess that's because we've always lived in a fiat world. And before 1971, gold was money, and fiat currency was more like claim checks on gold. So like gold didn't really fluctuate in value back then. Gold was just money. So I guess when you look at it that way, if Bitcoin or crypto just becomes money, then number go up is kind of like, at that point, I guess, irrelevant, I guess. Right now number go up works because we're in a fiat currency world and they're printing money, so it's kind of like fiat currencies are being debased versus these crypto networks that are gaining in value because they're printing so much. So I guess that would just be my like curveball I'd throw back at Richard and say, well, number go up. That's just because we're in a fiat world.
Well, I think that I can't speak for Richard, but I do think that if Richard were to say, so let's say that we move into a Bitcoin world, wouldn't number go up still matters if you want to have something that increases your Bitcoin value? Because, I think that the idea was, one of the things that I know that he has said was people who like hodled their Bitcoin for years, right? Who didn't touch it, who just let it. Wouldn't it be cool if while it was sitting there, it was also increasing in quantity?
If you were
being paid to hodl.
Right. So kind of and again, that's a popular, that's why staking coins are popular. People like that concept. And I guess you could be paid on Bitcoin and Litecoin, but it's in a, up until right now, it's mostly been in a centralized manner. There's institutions like Gemini, like Celsius, like Voyager. They'll pay you on your deposits, but then, is that really the idea of crypto when you have a centralized entity holding your, then it's
so that's why people were really upset when Hex was called a scam, because with Hex you are always in control of your private keys, unlike some of those other networks, which I'm not saying that any of them are negative, bad. I think that there are a lot of people in the Hex community who are fans of Celsius. Just that, like, it's kind of, I don't know, the whole thing was really, it was really strange to watch the way that the tribalism broke out. There are a couple of comments. Michael, Andrew, we all have to be aware of tribalism and remember that we are one big community promoting the blockchain space. Yeah, definitely. Trevor.
Yeah, because if you talk to a business, they just look at this all as crypto. They're not thinking like Hex, Litecoin, Dash, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, this coin. They're just like, because if you have a website, you want to payments, you say, all right, I'll take credit cards, I'll take PayPal, and I'll take crypto. You don't care what crypto comes in as long as it's one that I guess you could exchange it easy or do whatever you got to do with it easy. It's all coming in as crypto. It's just, it's the one gateway. So it's, yeah, we need to definitely, he's right. We need the tribalism is, in my mind.
It's the main focus of my study, and it's actually why the Hex community reached out to me early on to come and study them. And then I was like, oh, actually, I looked at Hex, a while ago, and yeah, like I agree, you guys are getting a really shit end of this deal. So yeah, I'll come learn more. Trevor says, save in Hex, pay in Litecoin. Yeah, why not? I mean,
Nice.
pay in whatever you want, right?
Hey, well, I guess there is advantages of paying in Litecoin, right? So let me talk about them real quick.
Okay.
Out of the top crypto networks, which are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, maybe a couple others, Litecoin has very low fees and it's very liquid. So it's not just, a crypto network can have low fees, but if it's not liquid, it's not really a world money.
Right, and Hex is has very low liquidity intentionally. So I think it's necessary that we work with something like Litecoin that has a really high liquidity.
Right. And then paying Litecoin makes sense because Litecoin's liquid. You can convert it into your local fiat currency, swap it into whatever you want. So I think, and it clears fast for a proof of work coin, and it's the transaction fees are low. So it's you can send Litecoin for less than a tenth of a penny, and Ethereum network is congested right now, and so it's hard for payments. Bitcoin works for large payments. So this is another misconception in payments. A lot of people always think of buying a hot dog or buying a piece of pizza over a counter. A lot of times when we say payments, we're talking big payments as well. So we're thinking about, hey, say somebody wants to send $165,000 from an international payment. They don't mind spending $20 on a Bitcoin network fee for that large of a payment. So it's all relative.
Sure. So I actually once, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, was like really not keeping any money in fiat because I was, panicking because it was the beginning of the lockdowns or somewhere in that interim. And so I was holding all of my value in cryptocurrency and gold.
Nice.
And then I needed to pay my rent. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna, set up, and I was using local Bitcoins, and I sent, I sent Bitcoin from one account to my local Bitcoins account to sell, and it took 3 days. And so like I ended up in the meantime having to sell a different crypto asset that could clear much quicker to pay my rent. But it was,
Yeah, it's not for something like that, because it's, if the network's congested, you really got to watch what you're doing, and you got to make sure the wallet puts a high enough transaction fee. And if you're in that situation, you're waiting days for your transaction to clear. That sucks. So that's why, that's really the use of Litecoin, is that it's so closely tied to Bitcoin, but it's just easier to transact with. It's more scalable for your everyday payments. And I think what a lot of people underestimate about Litecoin, and a lot of the Bitcoin maximalists will never tell you this, but they have to want Litecoin to succeed. They have to. They'll knock Litecoin and say, Litecoin is the test network for Bitcoin. Damn right. They test out a lot of stuff on Litecoin before they bring it to Bitcoin, right? Real world value on Litecoin, right? So do you want any changes to go through on Bitcoin that are good? Like, say you ever want Mimblewimble to come to Bitcoin, well, it's hitting Litecoin first. If it's successful on Litecoin for a while, maybe it'll hit Bitcoin down the line. So I think people underestimate that when they knock Litecoin. They say, oh, will Litecoin be here, this and that? It's like, if Bitcoin's going to be around, Litecoin's going to be around, because they need Litecoin to be around. So that's just something that
test beds are important.
It's very important. It's like I say, it's like if you're in a football game, the backup quarterback, you got to make sure he's safe, And what if you can't just play with the quarterback? You got to make sure you got a backup quarterback as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before I ask you this, to build a bridge with me?
Trying to think. Anything else I want to know about Hex? You talked to me about the time block thing.
The time deposits. Actually, so I wrote I rewrote a developer named Kyle wrote the layman's guide to Hex, and it was really, really complete and intricate in how everything worked during the launch phase. And then after the launch phase, there's so much information in there that was no longer necessary for people to know because it was just confusing about how the rewards worked. So I rewrote the layperson's guide to the Hex smart contract, and I'll send it to you. It's easy to read. And
what's the easiest place to buy Hex or get Hex if somebody wants to get their hands on it?
Uniswap or 1inch.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. And on those time deposits, is there a minimum length of time?
Nope. You can do one. So the minimum, I guess there is a minimum length of time, which is 1 day. And then the maximum length of time is 5,555 days.
If someone's afraid of commitment, they'll pick 1 day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the longer that you have staked, the higher interest that you're earning, the better that you're doing. Also, the gas fees for staking and unstaking are relatively high, so it doesn't really make tons of sense to stake for a day. You can just go to ethhex.com instead of going to MetaMask, but it does, or sorry, not MetaMask, but instead of going to Uniswap, you just use the direct link ethhex.com.
What's the typical staking reward for like a 1 year lockup or something like that? Do you know?
The typical staking, so for 1 year, I know that the rate fluctuates, but isn't it paying like 40 something percent right now, guys? Anybody know specifically in who's watching right now what the reward is right now? Yeah, it's like 40%, 14% APY for 1 year.
Okay. So it's a healthy staking reward.
1% for 30 days. Thank you, Brennan.
Okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah, sorry. So I remember the rewards being higher, but that was when less of it was locked up and less people had their Hex locked. So the more people have things locked, the lower the reward goes.
Right. Yeah. That's with any network, though. That's actually means you're that it's getting adopted and there's people joining the network, and that's actually a good thing. People look at that as a bad thing if the stake and reward goes down, because people have asked me about that. They've been like, "Oh," I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think it's a good thing. I'm like, because that means more people are joining the network, so it has more use, I guess. So
yeah, definitely. And I work for a crypto marketing company, and we have several staking projects that we represent, and it's true across them. The more people have their funds locked up, the lower the rewards are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely answered my questions. You're very knowledgeable about. You're a very knowledgeable Hexican.
Thanks. I mean, there's definitely people who know a lot more about the tech than me. I'm just an anthropologist.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jonny, thanks for taking the time to join me tonight. Before I ask you to build a bridge, I want to remind, because there are a lot more people watching right now than there were at the beginning, I want to remind everyone that I'm streaming again on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time with Kurt Wuckert Jr., who bills himself as the chief Bitcoin historian. He's a huge advocate of BSV. We're going to talk about the social history and evolution of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I hope you guys will tune in. And then also Maddie Allen, and I, Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central. We'll be there. Jonny, thank you so much for being here. Would you be willing to build a bridge with me?
I'm willing to do it.
You'll build a bridge with me?
I will. Okay. I'm down. I'm in.
Okay. You got to put your arm up.
Oh, let me see. Go to that. There.
Yeah, bridge. All right, guys, we've got a bridge built with Jonny from the Litecoin community. Maybe at some point we can get John Kim to come talk to us. That's what I'm hoping for. I will DM him when we get off here. All right. Have an awesome night, everyone. Jonny, thank you again. And then a $5 tip from MT Coiner. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. End broadcast.